What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Long Box Sessions. I am your host, Alex Dandino, and soon to join me is Josh Griffey. Guys, we're back for a very special episode. I hope you're as excited as I am. I'm delighted that we get to do this one again. The reason we're doing is we had an opportunity we could not pass up. A gentleman by the name of Mike Tenier got in touch with us. He is running a comic book. He's running a comic book through Kickstarter called Midnight Highway. Midnight Highway is this incredible book. It's all the things you love about John Carpenter, all the things you love about indie comic books. You smash them together into one comic, you get Midnight Highway. It's honestly a great read. The artwork is incredible. It's so much fun. Mike came on the pod to talk to us about it, the process by which they wrote the book, the process by which they got the art, and where the inspiration came from. Again, it was a really great chat. We talked a lot about John Carpenter, of course, and noticeably Mike was saying, John Carpenter was a big inspiration for the Midnight Highway book. So if you feel so inclined after our talk to go support Midnight Highway, please go find them on Kickstarter. You can buy their books through Kickstarter. They're great. They just funded their second issue, which is totally awesome. Actually, literally just a day ago it happened. So go support these guys. Go support their Kickstarter. Support indie comics. Here's the show. All right, guys, we have a very special guest for this long-awaited return to the Long Box. Friends, writer Mike Tenier. Teener is here, right? Teener.
I like tenure more, though. Yeah,
Teener. Mike Teener
got house. Tenure, damn it.
I'm safe.
How you doing, man?
Anywhere. Okay.
Oh, man. How are you? You doing all right?
Doing great, man.
Excellent. We're talking about this excellent book that you sent over to us, Midnight Highway. Issue 1 fully funded and issue 2 fully funded? Or
fully funded. We're
awesome.
we're past goal now, and I think
That's
the rest of the money's going to go towards a pool.
That's fantastic.
So pretty excited.
That's great. You get to install that pool, and
So
that's awesome.
Mike, this is something new to us, right? Because we've been comic readers for a long time, and obviously there's the shift happening in the comic book industry, right? And a lot of people are starting out their own books now through these crowd funding sources. What has been your experience working with the Kickstarter model, and what kind of stuff do you like about it? What have you found interesting about this version of getting your comic book out to people?
That's a really good question. I guess it's how I started into making comics, so it's all I've known.
Yeah, right.
I haven't been in previews yet. I haven't been picked up by a publisher yet, anything like that. So it's all been me having to figure out how to make money. So I enjoy it. I'm actually kind of addicted to it. I could probably tell you the same thing. I spend too much time, devoted to it probably, but I like being directly connected to people that really just want to support and make a book happen. I think you're getting a more intimate connection with readers because of that. These people are on there to they want to be the first, to see the book, to help make it happen, and there was that I was there mentality to a lot of those people that back it. So it's kind of nice that you have this direct line of communication with all those kinds of people, and it's also humbling because you learn how to market your book better.
Interesting.
Right? Yeah, because they vote with their dollars right away. You take your book into a retailer, like a comic shop, it's going to sit there. You're not going to know if it's sold or not really until you decide to come by and, hey, Frank, sold any copies today? No, okay. Well, I'm going to go shoot myself. But the thing is but here, you every day you're seeing a response. You're seeing people commenting and sending you messages. Hey, it'd be really cool if you did this, if you didn't do that, that kind of stuff. So, you start to learn more about what the consumer wants, which has been really neat.
Yeah. Well, it's hard when you go to the comic book shop, right? And it's like I walk through the new releases, and I mostly buy trades at this point. But you'll see the one book that breaks through, and it's sitting there surrounded by like the 15 Batman titles, and you know what I mean? And it's hard. It's like the person has to choose. Like, do I just go with Batman, which I know I like, or this whatever it is, right? So I do think there's something cool to that. Now, do you find it to be hard to have to do the funding every issue?
It's not really, but I mean, I might be having just a really nice stroke of luck, but
well, your book is very good.
Maybe now that you brought this up,
I don't know, man. The book's pretty incredible. Like,
you might have put a curse on me, man.
That is not my intention.
Everything's been funded, and we've set goals based off the budget, so we've been able to make the money back.
That's awesome.
And put that into other projects too, because that's the first thing is like you've got to make sure that, like, it started with you spending a lot of money not knowing if you're going to get it back, right? And then sometimes you try projects that maybe don't resonate the way that you thought they would, so you kind of don't maybe explore that.
That'll be on my tombstone for sure.
It's a really, again, like, I think this is the thing I love the most about Kickstarter, but Kickstarter books particularly is like, there's so much great art and there's so much great stuff going on Kickstarter. I think the direct market approach from, like, instead of browsing at a store, it is actually a lot of fun to browse through Kickstarter campaigns and like getting to figure. I mean, honestly, I think I bought 3 or 4 books this year on Kickstarter because obviously because of COVID, I'm not going to the shop as much, but I bought 3 or 4 books on Kickstarter simply because they just looked cool, yours included. Like, it's just like a really fascinating thing because it almost takes the place of the shop itself and makes it this, all like you were saying, a much more intimate experience. Kind of, it's really fascinating that you can even say that browsing on your computer, looking at comics, but it is a really cool experience knowing that you're part of something almost. Mm-hmm. It is a really personal experience for a person who likes just finding books. I
kind of compared it to a press kit. Like,
that's a good way to put it.
When you go by someone's campaign page, you know, they're kind of giving you just the whole rundown of everything you need to know about the book, inspirations, influences, the creative team. You know, you got a project video on there, which could probably convey in a different format to you kind of the tone and feel of the book, which we always do. We always put project videos on there that are animated and have a little bit of a personality to them. I don't know if you guys checked out the one for the issue 2 campaign, but both issues, their campaign videos have been, you know, fully animated and
I watched the issue 1. It was really, you guys do a nice job, man. It's a whole art form, honestly, kickstarting this stuff. Like, there's something otherworldly to it that, like, I've only done a few campaigns for like some other stuff of like my own, and I can tell you there is an art form to making those videos that I am just like not in touch with. Like, we pod every single week. I'm like, if this was a podcast thing, or like I could just talk about what I'm doing, might be, but like the video is otherworldly, and like your guys is no exception. It's really something else, man.
I wish we could take credit for it, but we had nothing to do with it. We paid another guy to do it.
You guys were the shoulders they stood on.
Yes,
to make
you guys are the. Yeah,
if it wasn't for my brilliant ideas, he would have had nothing to do. So.
That's right. My beard dribbles gave you the sustenance to make that video. No, but I mean, there is something to it, right? Because I think it's one of the hard things. Like, we do a lot of podcasting and this and that, and you know, I write screenplays, and we're about to start into a project to, you know, make a flick and whatever. And it's very daunting to be a self-promoter in this era of social media, I feel like. Yeah. Because everyone's out there screaming, you know, my thing, my thing, my thing. And I think what I like about the Kickstarter, like you were saying, the way you guys put yours together, I think it lures people in on this aspirational level, right? That people are like, I want to see, instead of just giving DC more money for, you know, whatever. It's nice to think that you could help someone take that next step, and maybe they'll make the next great book or the next great character. And like you said, you were there. So I think It's that aspirational thing. Do you find it hard to balance your self-promoting with the actual writing?
Yeah, you know, like I wish my co-creator on Midnight Highway could be here to tell you that we do absolutely nothing.
That's usually our go-to. It's like, we'll just keep putting out the work.
It took two of us to do nothing to get this thing off the ground. So that's what we talk about it that way. The writing process has been different from book to book that I've worked on. On this one, I love the campaigning. I like the promoting. I really do. A lot of people dread that. I like it because it helps me creatively. Like when I go back to another project, I learn more about what people want, like I said before. So it kind of helps me think about what I'm going to do in terms of telling the next story and making that appeal more to the audience. So I kind of learn from Kickstarters and then take that information back to me as I go back to writing a script. But I'm a bit of the Marvel method when it comes to writing. So we script out all the visuals. Midnight Highway was definitely meant to be a visual book. Dialogue second. That was definitely, we wanted the series of events and experiences to tell the story, not make a very wordy comic trying to explain to you everything that's happening on this supernatural highway. We want the visuals to kind of lead the way. So a lot of this rested on a really good art team to make sure that this worked well. As we went forward, like in issue 2, that one has a little bit more exposition in it, explains more, but again, it's really the events and the visuals that carry this story. And I think that's one great thing about comics that people tend to overlook, is that it is a visual book. It's the art can tell the story. You can, if you can flip through the pages and know the story, I think that's a good comic in a lot of ways, because okay, so I didn't know if I was going to say something that was going to take you off just now. So,
well, no, there's different versions of that, right? Because every now and again, you'll pick up a Golden Age book and be like, this is important in comic history. And you're just like, Jesus Christ. Like, it's just like these giant, like, paragraphs everywhere.
Right. That's the hardest thing. I think that's the hardest thing about reading Golden Age comics is, like, especially Marvel Golden Age, is because having to constantly... Because I never understood until I actually did the research why, like, Stan Lee would constantly recap, like, origin stories in the books. And it's like, oh, because there's a chance somebody, like, literally wouldn't know. Yeah. The assumption was that they wouldn't know what was going on, even if they weren't... Like, if someone picked up issue 4 as opposed to issue 1. But, like...
Well, because you never know when your mom's going to be at the grocery store, which is where we used to have to buy comics. Right. You know what I mean? So, I understand that. But, yeah, I mean, there is something to... I think a comic book, to your point, Mike, is there's something visceral about feeling like you are being driven through the panels. Yeah. Right? And there's nothing worse than getting a comic and you're just like, fuck, this feels like homework. Yeah. Like I am slogging through this, because you'll get like a big library edition. You're like, all right, I'm going to sit down. And you're like, oh my God. Like that was one issue. So, yeah, I mean, I agree. So Midnight Highway is your book. Would you like to talk about what is your process for when do you know that an idea is right and you start taking it to issue? How long does it take you to get from seed to a Kickstarter campaign? What's your process look like?
Cool. Well, I'm going to tell you one thing. This book was wish fulfillment. Like this was, we made this book because this is what we wished was already out there. Yeah. Nice. Until somebody messages me randomly and says, "Oh, by the way, there's a movie from like 5 years ago." That's exactly
that's always the case.
It happens every time.
Yeah, it hasn't happened yet on this one.
Well, I hate to break your heart.
Live on the air, we're going to disappoint you in front of everyone. So
you are not the father. No. I'm just kidding.
Oh man, that threw me off. But anyway.
That's my superpower, Mike. That's a good one. Bringing the interview to a grinding halt.
Completely. I don't know. Well done. I don't remember the question now, but no, I'm just kidding. I got it. When we were coming up with it, we were just like, hey, what would be the best way to introduce you to the highway and stuff? Because we kind of, the concept came from me just doing a lot of late night drives for work. And those late night drives were very surreal because time would pass and it didn't feel like it, and you just get lost in listening to music, and you'd miss an exit that you always remembered to take, but for whatever reason you missed it that time. What happened mentally that made you remember how to operate the car, stay in your lane, all of these other things, but for whatever reason you missed this turn that you've always known to make? And so that's what started the process of coming up with the concept of Midnight Highway. And the belief is that, well, you probably slipped into the Midnight Highway when that happened. And so that's when I reached out to Alex, because he was a really big fan of 80s horror, and so am I. We started to build out really this belief, or this concept of this kid that's just like Alice in Wonderland. He is just making his way through the Midnight Highway and experiencing all these fantastical things, and all of it is kind of in honor of and respect paid to all the horror films of the 80s that paved the way. So Carpenter was obviously a huge influence for that. Obviously not Prince of Darkness, but
I feel like it's odd you say that, though. It's strange because I don't know, Griffey, I don't know if you agree, but actually I was reading through and I felt actually there was a lot of Prince of Darkness, particularly like there's some visual motifs.
It's so funny because, we had talked to you about how you loved Carpenter and all that. And as soon as I read your book, I was like, oh, he loves Prince of Darkness. And that's the one you had. I mean, granted, a lot of Carpenter kind of falls in this, trajectory.
But yeah, I mean, and I see like elements of Christine and The Thing too. But like, what about Carpenter do you think makes Midnight Highway possible?
So I think it's really funny because you can't hear a comic. But sometimes when you look at visuals, you can start to lift a tone out of that and feeling. So I think kind of reverse engineer that for a second and think about Carpenter's scores in his films and the music he uses. And especially pulling from the 80s era. I think that played a really big part in terms of how we were crafting the story and the pacing. And even from a visual standpoint, I kind of feel like I'm hearing Carpenter's music when I look at the visuals of the book too. And I think Alex, my co-writer, would feel the same way about that. But we were always a really big fan of Carpenter because he would have all these really strange ideas, and somehow he managed to meld it all together and make it work and put a film out. And he did that repeatedly. And the fact that he had great successes, moderate successes, some would consider some failures in there. I think when you go back and look at a lot of his filmography, most of it was looked back in hindsight more affectionately than it was in the moment. Mm-hmm. Like The Thing was a flop. Big Trouble in Little China was a flop. In the Mouth of Madness was a flop. The Fog was not a flop, but that would have probably been the one that probably should have been a flop out of all of them. You know what I mean? It's funny that, all that stuff. Alex and I would just talk about that every night when we were talking about Midnight Highway. We would always end up talking about Carpenter and movies that we loved by him. And I must have toned out when he's talking about Prince of Darkness. But either way, we started putting things together, and it was very much the process was, oh, dude, you know what would be cool? And then the next person would build off that idea, and then we go from there. And we were totally really cool with each other because it was easy for us to come back and be like, dude, that idea is lame. We're not. Like he did that with me. He sent me an idea for issue 3 because we don't think that far in advance. We're fans of this too. Mm-hmm. And it's still kind of a mystery to us how this is going to play out. We have some general ideas, but we're kind of exploring this at the same pace that we want the readers to. So we're just now mapping out issue 3, and he tossed me an idea, and he was sold on it. He's like, oh, dude, this is totally what we need to do. And I told him, I was like, no, that is lame. We're not doing that. I probably crushed him with that one. He's probably thought about it all night. Yeah. And he's done that with me too, though. He is definitely like pushed back. And so that process for issue 1 was harder because we were like, we wanted to make a splash. We wanted to make an impact. We wanted it to be everything that we wanted it to be, because if it was going to be the only issue that was ever made, we wanted to make sure that we got all the good stuff in that we wanted. And then we started over when we got to issue 2, and we did something very similar. But we always wanted to make sure that in some way, shape, or form, we subverted some expectation, did something that we didn't market, and then surprised people with it as we got, towards the halfway point in the book or towards the end of the book. So we felt like we did that with number 1, especially with the monster, because I think we did some unusual things with the monster. And then in issue 2, we did the same thing. Like there is like a whole, I'd say 3/4 of this book that we just not shown at all to anybody. Mm-hmm. And everything that we marketed for issue 2 has just been just this haunted arcade, right? So like,
I mean, issue one ends spectacularly. By the way, like that is like what an awesome cliffhanger. Like to just set up everything is just so cool. It's funny that because I was the first thing I noted after I finished the issue. I was like, there's not a lot of dialogue in here. I absolutely love that, and I love that you guys gave your artist the room to do his work. And like, Griffey's already said it, but yeah, like. Comics are a visual medium, and it's so weird when there's just like whole chunks of dialogue that like, and it's not done for like patter effect either. It's literally entire chunks of dialogue just because of dialogue. Right. And it's so weird because you don't want your characters doing that kind of thing in comics. Like nobody wants to read that.
But it reeks of not believing in your story.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? So a lot of it is like,
it rings of not believing in your artist, which is exactly what we're all here for. You know?
I don't even know if, maybe it's the artist thing, but I think a lot of it is because, like when I've written comics and this and that, and I know that exact fight you had because me and my friend have been fighting over a scene for like 2 years in a book that'll never get made, but like still every time we call each other, the first thing is like, remember how you torpedoed the greatest idea in comic history that game? And like we have this fight all the fucking time. But yeah, I mean, I think there's some comics, I think, and I think maybe this gets to your point, Mike, and what is interesting about the way you're approaching this, right, is I think sometimes when a series is so laid out and so rigorously plotted and regimented, right, that there is this absolute need to make sure that your audience knows exactly where this is going, right? You don't want them to miss the thing and then feel upset later down the road. And I think a lot of times some stories, right, are like something like, let's say, not that this does it, right, but like Black Monday, Department of Truth. These are really out there stories. And I think some books try to go that far and they're afraid. So they try to over explain away every detail and you lose some of that vibrance and mystique of the story. Is that how you have been experiencing the writing process?
Yes. Another influence for us early on was Twin Peaks. We like Lynch. So, Twin Peaks was really good about just breadcrumbs, right? Just little details here and there. Some things added up, some things did not, and you know what? It was fine. Like that was like you accepted all the odds and ends and all the peculiar elements to the story. And it's kind of the same principle here. There's things that are introduced that probably won't go anywhere. But we kind of have a general idea of where we want to land. There's definitely an end to this, at least for this character on the Midnight Highway.
Right. Did you guys start with an ending in mind?
No.
Or did you? That's even better because I got to tell you, I love it when you start without that. Like, I know how this is going to end. The fact that you have this open ended is so great.
The whole mindset was just to start somewhere and just let the story kind of tell itself. I think that was the idea.
Right.
And something that we've done in on top of that is we wanted to have other people contribute to Midnight Highway as well and build out the story in different ways. So we have like a podcast. We've got one episode completed right now, but it is there's a character in the book. It's the radio.
Right.
Radio host takes over and it's Midnight Highway Radio.
Awesome.
So we do a podcast episode of Midnight Highway Radio where it's the character from the car radio interviewing people and their experiences along the Midnight Highway. And
that's awesome.
So it's a fun little way to kind of expand the universe without having it be kind of like a slave to the core story of Alex, the main character that's going through the story. There's a lot of Alexes involved with Midnight Highway.
Wow, there's a lot of Alexes all over the place.
I mean, there's 6 now, considering you're interviewing me.
Yeah, wow.
So.
I mean, they are really just becoming a rash upon society.
They're awful. They're the worst.
And we also dedicate a page in the back of every issue. That's kind of like our commitment to where we tap another indie writer to tell their own personal account of an experience on a Midnight Highway. So they come up with a character and tell their own story. And some of them are really heartfelt and touching, but still kind of odd. So that's what I mean about the Twin Peaks element is like there's like this. Sometimes there's a melodrama in there, and it's all like monsters and like Carpenter to me is just like a guy that had a lot of action figures and he just made movies with his action figures. And I'm pretty sure that's how I came up with the stories. Like, but for in terms of these stories, they tend to be on the fringe there, and we've had like 3 so far submitted, and they're all not monsters. They're not, extreme. They're more like deep and personal tales. And these writers came up with that themselves. We didn't tell them what to write. Right. And so it kind of tells you that, hey, there's this opportunity for other people to make connections to the Midnight Highway and continue to build out the story and make their own version of it, and that's what kind of makes it exciting. And we kind of treated the story the same way. And we were like, hey, whatever story we tell may not be the best story about the Midnight Highway, but we started it, Yeah. And that's kind of the idea.
I mean, it's awesome. You're building your own community just like Carpenter would have with a Victor Wong and Adrian Barbeau. You're just collecting all your friends. Yeah. I love it. It's exactly what comics should be, honestly. Like, it's the right spirit and it's the right way to do it. I mean, to encourage other people to be doing their art the way that the way that you're passionate about your art, to encourage people to do it too. It's commendable. It's awesome. And especially in this lens too. I mean, it's a great book. It's a great concept. Why wouldn't you want to expand that universe? It's rad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's something really fun about it too, in the Carpenter sense. Is I like the setup of the book is, because I think it's one of those really, like, I live in the country, right, in Indiana. So there are times when you're just driving and you're like, it's so fucking black. And 3 feet off the road, you're like, I have no idea what's even there. And I think it's so rare in today's world that you ever find yourself really, truly alone and just with your thoughts and quiet, right? We're constantly bombarded. And hopefully, like, when I drive on backcountry roads, I'm pretty adamant about no fucking cell phones. There's deer and, like, God knows what. Yeah. And so it really is one of those rare times where you really are just sitting and thinking. And it feels, another Carpenter movie that does this scene really well is In the Mouth of Madness, right? Where the writer's just driving and he starts seeing visions. Next thing you know, you're like, where the fuck are we?
Right.
And they're in this weird fucking creep town. Yeah. But so what about that idea of just the kind of quiet driving through the unknown called out to you for this idea?
Well, like, I'm sure you guys have very vivid imaginations, right? And
somewhat, yes.
If someone put you in a room pitch black for more than an hour, you probably would be horrified by the end of that hour. You know what I mean? Like your mind will create the worst things, right? So when you're on that abandoned road and it's dark out, the whole time you're just wondering, am I going to be that person that has a close encounter with something otherworldly? So my mind starts to go down that path, and then ideas come. And so it was it's kind of like this mix of like this serene, tranquil, isolated feeling when you're taking those late night drives. And then there's this other side of like dread and mystery, the unknown, because of all that darkness out there. And so I think like Midnight Highway is kind of like the idea is to kind of bridge those two corners, pull those two feelings together. Right. So the deer thing, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I live in West Virginia. I'm in southern West Virginia, so there are deer everywhere, and that's why
everywhere.
I've hit 3 deer. Mm-hmm. I totaled 2 cars. The third one nearly. And
that was our Midnight Highway story. And we were kids. We were coming back late night, and my dad's truck, the deer like slid, and he decapitated a deer.
Whoa!
So we got out, and the fucking thing was just stuck in the front of our car, and the head had gotten ripped off.
Wow!
And it was just like what the fuck? So it was like absolute insanity.
That's horrifying.
Yeah, but everyone in a country
they jump out. That's the thing.
Yeah,
really quick.
And they're fucking big. They're way bigger than people imagine, I think.
Exactly right. Exactly, and that's why we did that. Is because we were like, hey, they're kind of a beautiful creature, right? They're elegant. The antlers and everything like that. It's just a really very elegant design, but they're they seem peaceful. They're often perceived as prey, right? They're not. It's rare that people are like genuinely terrified of. What scares you is the fact that they like to jump out in front of cars. It has something to do with how their eyes perceive or receive light, and they get drawn to light at night instead of deterred from it. They think they're running away from it, but they're actually running away. So
fucking moth to the flame,
dude. It's what it is. I mean, that's why I've read that anyway. So I don't know if this is like, I don't know if any listings can be like, actually, that's not right at all. But
our demographic is not hardcore biologists, so I think we'll be
all right. So,
well, dude, I'll tell you. Okay, now that we're just doing detours, I'll tell you one more. We used to get drunk, and you couldn't drink like around your parents, right? So we would just pull off into cornfields.
Yeah.
And one night we were in this tractor turnaround, right? And it's just this big like circle area that's in the middle. So you're surrounded by like corn higher than you. And talk about fucking scary, right? Cornfields at night.
Yeah.
And so we'd be sitting there with the car, and you couldn't have the battery on. So we're like trying to have just enough light. Well, I remember I was sitting there, and I went to, go pee. And I turned around, and I shit you not, a deer is just like face to face with me.
Oh my God.
And I just had this, the only thing I did before I even zipped my pants up. So there I am with my cock out. And I just put my fists up like I was going to like John Wayne box this fucking deer. And it was one of the wildest moments of my life. I was like, this is where I know if I'm a man or not. And thank God it fucking ran away. But they're fucking scary. Sorry, not to just derail you with like the most boring Indiana Midnight Highway story.
I don't think that's boring at all. You almost boxed a deer. You took a deer's head off.
Yeah. I don't think you want to fight a deer with your pants down. It had antlers and shit, but anyway.
So I tell you, like, they are big. I mean, I went back and checked on one that I hit, and it was like a 12-point buck.
God damn.
And wow. You know what I mean? Like, it was like I had a brother-in-law that liked to hunt, so he was like, "Hey, do you want me to like mount that for you?"
You can tell. Yeah, I killed that with a Swiss Army knife in my bare hands.
So, that's fantastic,
dude. So they're like, obviously, yeah, it totaled your car. I mean, like, it just like sandwiched it, just smashed it. And yeah, so like, in Midnight Highway, we were trying to think of a creature that you would see on the road and you would be able to approach it. Right. And I feel like more people would like try to get out of the car to scare a deer off.
Or pull their pants down in some cases, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All I learned is that it draws them in.
You got some weird, very weird kinks.
Well, no, yeah, this is a weird thing, though. To your point, I read this thing that the reason that dolphins are one of the highest injury animals, right? Like, they injure a ton of people every year. Because they're like, people will just see dolphins and think that they're friendly and fucking jump in on them, right? So these dolphins are swimming with their fucking families and pods, whatever they're called. And some fucking tourist just cannonballs them. And the dolphins think it's an attack, and they turn around and fucking just nail people and break their ribs and shit. Them. And that, I mean, I think there is a part of that where we feel a kinship with nature, and because everything's been Disney-fied, we just assume like, oh, that's not a bear, it'll be fine. And you're like, these animals don't know what the fuck. Like, imagine you're just out like eating grass, and you see a giant fucking with headlights, and then a little thing gets out from it and starts saying these sounds to you. You'd be like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
It's crazy. I don't know why we behave this way. I do blame Disney, though, 90%.
I think that's fair.
I wanted to ask, did you guys seek out this artist particularly, or did you find them by happenstance? I mean, how'd you guys, the art's incredible.
Thanks.
So I just curious, like, where did you guys determine who was going to be your artist?
It was carefully.
Yeah.
Because we did a lot of tests. We did a lot of test pages. We tested like 20 colorists.
The colors are incredible, by the way.
They are. And we had a replacement colorist on the book recently, and he is like, we thought that was going to be a huge risk because the color work was so great on that first issue, but it worked out. Like the new colorist like went back and looked at all the work, and he was like, "Oh my god, this is awesome!" So like we thought we had scared off our new colorist, and so
what are the names of the artists?
Okay, so Alexander Malchev is the artist, like the actual like pencil and inker.
Mm.
Edward Saldivar was the colorist on issue 1 and half of issue 2, and then Kevin Anthony DeCastro took over for the remaining portion of issue 2.
They just did stellar work.
Dude,
they really did.
And our letterer did a good job too. That's the thing. Like the lettering's
fantastic.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Shout out everyone's names. Yeah, here we go. Who's the letterer?
Dave Lentz, correct?
Yes. Yeah. He's a rock star. Like that guy's going to go on to do a lot. Because like after he did his work on Midnight Highway, he was doing a lot of stuff before that. But like I think after people saw the pages from Midnight Highway, like my friend circle, like all the creators that I know, they all started hiring him for their books. You know, so he got picked up to do a lot more books. He's very busy now.
Perfect.
But he was doing a lot of stuff before. But I can definitely see that his work on that book definitely like spiderwebbed or whatever, and create ripple effects rather.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think the story you guys set up and the influence you guys put together, everything just oozes out from there, and like everybody seems to lock in directly with what you guys are trying to get across.
Yeah.
And I mean, as writers then too, I mean, do you guys see the pages that you're getting back and like, oh wow, this is like, is it always a situation where you're like, well, that's pretty much what I expect, or is it always like, I knew it's so much better than I expected it to be in my head?
It is. It's that every time, man. It's
that's
like,
awesome.
I've always said it's like Christmas every time because like I almost only work through Facebook Messenger. Like I hate working through email. I hate communicating through email. Maybe that's why I didn't read your guys' emails.
You and my mom would be best friends. Yeah.
I just hate it. I think Messenger's just easier to navigate through. But anyway,
right.
Every day I'll get like, hey, this person just sent you a photo. I'm like, oh boy, you know, like I'm like ready to pull it out and maybe I should say that a different way. Ready to pull that up. That's not much better, but you know,
we're not here to shame you for how you use Messenger. It's fine.
So either way, you know, like it's exciting every time. Yes, absolutely.
That's awesome.
And the great thing about Alex, the artist, is we'll give him the script, and he'll be gone for like 30 days. You know, it's like he goes to like, I don't know if he climbs a mountain and then stays in like a temple somewhere, and then comes back down with all the pages done. But he'll knock out like 30 pages in 30 days.
Wow.
And so we'll have the whole book back all at once, and it's just
crazy.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
And then on the opposite of that, our previous colorist, you know, he would do like 2 pages a month. So it was like, you know, so whenever we get those pages, we're like, oh, they're amazing, they're beautiful, you know. And it's definitely the exciting element of the process is seeing that art come to life like that. Absolutely. And they always add more. Like the last page of Midnight Highway issue 1. The great thing about that is that last page we almost didn't go with because we actually rewrote the script and we had a different ending. Well, the thing is I didn't realize that Alexander got the original draft already. And so he went ahead and illustrated all those pages, right? And then he went and illustrated all the new pages on top of those old pages in one Photoshop file. Wow. So here's the thing, right? Like I get page 21 from him, and it's like the new ending, you know, and I see it. I'm like, hey, it looks good. It leads right into the next issue and all that jazz. And then we send it off to our artist that does 3D rendering because we have 3D versions of these books.
Right.
Anaglyph 3D and stuff. So I sent it off to him, and then he comes back. He's like, hey, what pages do you want me to do? I'm like, 21 pages. He's like, yeah, but there's like 40 some on here. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, there's like a second layer under all these Photoshop files. I'm like, shut. So like I go back and pull out all these files, and there's like all this art that I just didn't know was there at all. And then
that's awesome.
I saw that last page. When I saw the file, I was like, oh God, we got to use that one instead.
Yeah.
So I went back to Alex, my co-writer, and we're like, hey, we're going to have to use this page instead.
It's absolutely incredible.
We're going to have to rethink issue 2 and find a different way to start it off.
It's like your own personal Midnight Highway via Photoshop.
Dude, I swear to God.
It's the underlayer.
You can't make that stuff up. Like we were, like I called Alex. It's like, I know you don't have the Photoshop program, but let me just like send you screenshots of the before and after of these files. And stuff. Like,
that's fantastic.
Blown away. And the fact that he didn't charge more for any of this either, because like I would have caught it if he would have been like, hey, I'm gonna have to charge you more because I have to revise his pages. He didn't even do that. So I was like, all right, This guy has a contract with us for life. This guy,
right?
We're always gonna use this guy.
So amazing. For those who don't know about the Kickstarter campaign and all that, where can people grab the books?
Right now, it's just through Kickstarter.
Just through Kickstarter.
I'm starting an online site right now.
Okay, cool.
We're working on that. I'm not sure what I can and can't say right now, but it has drawn interest of publishers.
Cool. That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah,
as it should. It's fantastic.
Thanks. Thank you. We don't know the details of any of that stuff yet, and that's probably quite a few months out, but we're going to continue to get the books funded through Kickstarter until we sign with someone that says that we can't anymore, and then we say, okay.
Love it. Okay.
Do what you want us to do now, sir. So
awesome. Where can we direct people to help you right now? Is there a specific
Kickstarter?
So just when you're at Kickstarter, just type in Midnight Highway.
That's all you're going to find. Midnight Highway will pull you to issue 1 and issue 2. We titled this one number 1 to number 2, so that way people know that they can pick up both.
Awesome.
Campaign, they're not missing out. There's the 3D version of the book that we think is really awesome. You can get a lot of glow-in-the-dark art. There's a VHS tape that we have made with a VHS case. Actually, I could grab one right now.
Oh my god, awesome. Oh my god.
My old VHS collector.
It's backwards.
Oh my god, that is so awesome.
So
holy shit.
There's all kinds of different little things that you can grab on the campaign.
That is cool.
I like the glow-in-the-dark t-shirt myself. That's one of my favorite things. But yeah, there's tons of stuff. There's still room for you to be drawn into issue 3. There's still 2 slots open there. All kinds of goodies.
Awesome. Well, yeah, we'll put the link in on the information for the pod and everything like that. But everyone who's listening, everyone who's watching, make sure that you go check out Midnight Highway. It's a fantastic book. Like, it's unparalleled awesomeness. I truly believe this. And like, the visuals are great. Awesome Carpenter references. And just like, again, it's so nice to talk to people who like really care about like the visual medium, and like, you're the writer, but you understand that like you got to let these guys do their jobs, and like that's how you become a better writer anyways, in my opinion, is by understanding that you can't just govern the art the entire time. I love it. It was an awesome read. I can't wait to pick up issue 2. Go now. Do not wait. Just immediately click on this.
I appreciate that a lot, guys. Thank you. I mean, we're excited about it. Like I said, we're fans. It's great hearing that you guys liked it too.
Yeah,
man. It means a lot.
Yeah, it was awesome. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it on this. This is kind of historic. This will be the first long box in like 2 years. This is kind of cool.
All because I'm lazy. So
I mean, apparently so are we. So
yeah, who knew?
Yeah, I don't know how it works, but it does.
All good. This worked out. This is so cool. Yeah, Midnight Highway is the book. Mike, thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else you need to plug?
Oh no,
besides you being a nice guy.
Yeah, how about that? My OnlyFans, maybe
Oh yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah,
that's truly the Midnight Highway right there. There we go.
Now I'm about to get my wallet out. Yeah.
Man, that's the art team. That's the only thing I'd plug right now.
Awesome.
Thanking them for all the great work that they've done on it. None of it would have happened without them. So. Yeah.
Love it. Mike, thanks for being here. Midnight Highway is the book. Guys, go pick it up. It's on Kickstarter. Have a good